Alright, I've forgotten how to do this.
Do you want me to intro? I don't know why I should, but since this is going on your channel, but...
It's true. It's going on my channel. Yeah. Alright, I'll kick us off.
Alright.
And I hope I'll not flump it, because it's the first time doing this.
Yeah.
On
your
barely,
channel.
Yeah, man, we barely frickin' made the name like an hour ago. Alright.
Specifically while I was at work.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the first of a brand new podcast that's going to be happening here on my channel here. It's called Mobile Pod, which is a name relevant to Mecha and stuff like that, relevant to Gundam, relevant to Macross, relevant to it being a podcast. And so I am one of your hosts. I am Mr. BakaShift. This is my channel. You probably know who I am. And your other co-host will be joining you. I'm just a guy, man.
I've never talked to you before. I feel like your voice sounds familiar, but I don't know who you are exactly.
I did some sketchy adverts on telly at one point.
Ooh.
Maybe it's from that.
So you're that guy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Who are you, though?
I am, a person who, also enjoys mechs and just happens to be on your channel. My name is Sooin, as some of you may or may not know, probably don't. But, yes. Welcome to Mobile Pod.
And, this is a thing that we sort of randomly thought up not that long ago. And I was like, man, that sounds like an amazing idea. Shame I've got copyright strikes. And I can't upload videos longer than 15 minutes.
So if you get another copyright strike before July 10th, I guess this is the end.
Or if I get another copyright strike after we've made a good run and we just have to stop doing it.
Oh, God.
Or we'll just switch it to your channel at that point, to be honest.
I know.
But yeah, this is a podcast we're going to be doing with some sort of regularity. I don't know how regularly we're going to do it, mainly because it sort of pins on how regularly I do other things on my channel, so my channel doesn't turn into just this. But yeah, it's going to be a podcast about anything and everything that falls under the umbrella of the mecha genre. And it's not just going to be talking about Gundam, but Gundam is going to be mentioned quite a lot.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, in case you didn't know.
And to ease everyone in, we're just some forewarning. There's going to be some topics we're going to be discussing, we plan to discuss in future episodes, that are going to be pretty fringe, pretty specific, pretty relevant to some interests that I think perhaps in the community only me and Sooin give a shit about. So I apologise in advance for that, but I thought we'd start today with something a little more broad and open, and something that is going to be appreciated by quite a lot of people. So me and Sooin, taking turns, we're going to run through each of our top 5 favourite mecha anime of all time. There's not really any rules of it. Just gotta be mecha. We're not limiting it to one per franchise, anything like that. And
that being said, there might be spoilers. Might.
I don't think there will be. I say, okay, if there are spoilers,
I guess
we will specifically state at the point, so people can skip past, because it's a list. We don't want to spoil anyone too much. But Sooin, why don't you kick us off? Because we're going to start with some honourable mentions real quick. And so kick us off with your honourable mentions, Sooin.
So before I kick off, I've realized that there's a recurring theme in both my honourable mentions and my top 5 favorite mechs. It's that each of them have their own amazing soundtrack, courtesy of a very, very, very special composer. You might not have heard, but she...
Is every single one of your things Yoko Kanno?
Let's see. Let me just count. Hang on.
Right.
No. Not all of them.
On there.
A good chunk of them are.
This is Mobile Pod, a podcast about mechs and Yoko Kanno.
Podcast. Can we just talk about Yoko Kanno,
Zankyo no
please?
Terra.
Oh, no, she's so amazing. But but yes.
Sooin and Yoko Kanno are getting married on the 9th of November this year.
Mm-hmm. It says so on my certificate. You can check it on Twitter. In Comic Sans. But yes. One of my first honorable mentions, one that is actually not finished, but aired recently, is something called the Code Geass Akito the Exile OVAs. And I know I'm going out on a limb and saying that because it's not done and there's about 40% of the episodes not finished. But for what it does it really well. And what it does really well is specifically the action sequences. And have you seen any of Akito the Exiled, Alan?
I've seen the first episode when it first came out, when I was still sort of big on my Code Geass high after R2 finished. And I was basically planning to wait until it had all aired until I finished it off. I'm actually pretty surprised to hear that on yours.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised also, because one of the very first things that caught the eyes of a lot of people when it aired initially is, other than being attached to the Code Geass name, is the use of CG, which kind of bugged a lot of people, which I could understand kind of, but in a sense, the one that made it stand out really well in my books is that it used CG as an enhancer rather than as a crutch, which happens a lot in anime these days.
I think when I first when I watched the first episode, I was definitely confused by the CG just because there wasn't any of that in the series, and it was just kind of a bit strange to see the jump. But in terms of what they did with it, it definitely looked bloody solid.
Oh yeah.
Like, just some of the particular scenes memorable from the first episode are all the action scenes in the forest and how they dealt with the lighting and stuff.
Yes, and when everything
the
was
3D
dark.
motion.
Yes.
Yeah, that it did look pretty sick. And like, you're rarely going to hear me compliment CG.
Alan is kind of known for bugging on CG, kind of, if you didn't know already.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, like, especially...
Shoutouts to Nobunaga the Fool.
Shout out to Knights of Sidonia. But, yes, the action sequences are amazing. There are lots of things I am kind of bugged on about, like, I'm not really a big fan of clamp, designs in general, and I'm not really a big fan of the way that it's kind of panning out in a sense, because it's kind of teetering on, you could possibly change the timeline of R2 because it's set between season 1 and season 2.
Yeah.
Especially what happened in the most recent one, which is episode 3 of the OVAs. But in regards to what it wanted to do in terms of action, you can tell that they definitely knew what they were doing. Like, you could tell that even by 2007, 2006 standards, the mech fights in Code Geass did not look very well. Like, some of them, it could have been animated really well, but I think most of them resorted to either still shots or, there's really close-up shots, so you don't have to illustrate a lot of what's really going on.
Yeah, I think the thing with Code Geass and how it did its action scenes, it was very different from the first season to the second season, because the first season was a lot of, like, mass amounts of nightmare frames on these large-scale battlefields with a lot of tactics, which meant there wasn't that much sort of one-on-one stuff other than things with the Lancelot and the Gurren. But then when it came to R2,
it was just all in the air.
Yeah, a lot of the action scenes were just kind of like panned all the way back, and you just see like Gurren Satan running around destroying everything. Aside from some of, again, the stuff with the Lancelot and the Gurren, like doing their one-on-one stuff that they actually sort of put a lot more effort into.
Mm-hmm. Like, it definitely got better as the episodes came to a close, but compared to what it could have been, it definitely could have done better. But yeah, one of the best things about what it did really well, other than like the CG, was because a lot of the nightmares are ground-based, which means that they have to move a lot. So the Lancelot before R2 just made everyone OP, anyone important in there, before it had all its wings and stuff.
Yeah, but that's the fucking thing that happened. It was like, it was just like, right, I've just invented these energy wings that do everything, and now suddenly all the matches and battles are just floating around and zipping about in the sky.
And one of the things that stood out in its fight sequences in Akito the Exile was the way that it moved. It moves like a human.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell that the mechs are recoiling. Whenever they make a huge jump, you can tell that they make that, when people jump down, they make this little bounce in their knees. Mm-hmm. When they're trying to, I guess, how do we call it? Absorb all the shock.
Yeah.
So, like, when they're doing all the shock absorption, it feels really fluid, and that's where CG comes into play. And not just as a crutch and just used throughout the freaking show on humans, where everything just looks really wonky.
Yeah. It's basically a case of, as you said, it's using it to enhance. It's using it for the purposes of actually making it look good. Mm-hmm. As opposed to just being there for budget reasons.
Yeah, and like, the weird thing is, even for like really big budget shows that would have a lot of fan base and would make a lot of money, you don't really get that. Because a lot of mechs, especially the ones that we associate, or at least most people do, is space.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really choreograph like real, like raw fighting, that raw sense of fighting. Really?
Exclusively based on the opening scene of Gundam the Origin.
Really?
And how they did that, yeah. I thought that was like really raw and just and a lot more busy than what I'd usually seen from stuff in space.
Feels busy, but but they were using guns more and more ranged weapons. I guess that's where I'm getting my main point from.
Yeah, well, they weren't all doing it like that. When the Black TriStar showed up, and he's like using his Heat Hawk on the ship's like
the giant axe, right?
Bit. Yeah, his giant Heat Hawk. Just stuff like that. There was a lot of interesting things they were doing with it that you don't often see in space.
I guess.
And again, it's down to the CG.
I guess in that sense, that CG wasn't really rendered too well compared to Akito the Exiled.
It's down to lighting more than anything else in the surroundings.
Yeah, but yeah, in terms of, I guess, ground-based fighting or land-based melee combat, I think Akito the Exiled is so far the best one we've seen. I could be wrong. Like, there's some stuff I haven't seen that I really want to, like 8th MS Team.
As we said, like the 8th MS Team, it isn't really a case of like fast-paced action. It's badass tactics and like really, really, really beautiful, crisp cell animation. And we'll talk about that a bit more later.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yep.
But yeah.
But man, so the main reason you've put it on there for one of your honorable mentions is just down to the action scenes.
No, not exactly. Part of it is.
Do you like it more than original Code Geass at this point?
I don't know, actually. Like, that's a bit of a difficult question to answer, considering.
Is that a question you need the it to
yeah. Because I think most of us can agree that R2 had one of the best endings ever. So.
Absolutely. There's a lot of shortcomings that a lot of people have mentioned from R2, but I don't see how you can fault the ending.
I think that was the only ending you could really go with, honestly. So, but yeah. Alain, what is yours?
We've been going.
How long have we been going?
We're going for like 10 minutes, and we've only done one honorable mention.
Sorry.
We never because there's just two of us. I wasn't expecting this podcast to end up being overly long, but I don't care. We'll go until we're done talking. It's just like a lot of our future episodes where we have other topics are probably going to be a lot less dense than this, but there's a lot to talk about here. So my first honorable mention, speaking of CG and stuff, is actually big shocker for some people. It doesn't actually make it into my top 5. It's a Gundam Unicorn. Yeah, going to be a lot of Gundam mentions. First one mentioning for me. Main reason why this hasn't made it into my top 5, and there's actually one show in my top 5 that I've reviewed and that I gave a lower score than Unicorn. But I think the reason why Unicorn slips out is that I guess it's the impact of its story in comparison to other stuff in UC, but I'm not going to talk about why it's fallen short of the top 5, because, I mean, the main reason why it's fallen short of the top 5 is just because of how good the other shows I'm going to be talking about are. But, I mean, everyone's probably, who's listening to this on my channel, will have seen my Unicorn review to know my full thoughts on it. But Unicorn really is a spectacle. It is very much a massive chunk of fan service to existing fans of UC, and it's something that can definitely be enjoyed, as I've said before, by people who haven't seen anything from Gundam. But when you have seen everything that's preceded it, and you get these little nuances and these little references, and you know what the importance of these characters are, and what they're doing in this kind of battle, it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting, and so the way they go in the end and the way they use the big MacGuffin is I thought was dealt with in an incredible way. And obviously the biggest pull of Gundam Unicorn, and there's so many people out there that don't appreciate Gundam Unicorn there.
Really?
And I respect that. There's a lot of like core UC fans. I mean, it's mainly because a lot of what is dealt with in the story of Unicorn is stuff that has been done before, and done before to a better scale.
I guess.
And there's also the fact that with how stuff resolves in Unicorn, this isn't really spoilers of a specific show, but with how things resolve in Unicorn and what happens in the end, when you look at what happens in the future timelines and you think that what they did actually didn't achieve that much, which is a shame.
But not
But,
sure. You fucked up.
Yeah.
You fucked up.
But no matter what, whoever has seen this show, no matter what they thought of the story, what they thought of the characters, it's the visuals and the OST that really make this a top series. Like, it is, without a doubt, in my opinion, Sunrise's most beautiful in terms of animation, in some ways, in terms of design, because, well, Kotoki Hajime, he's my babe. It's just incredible to look at everything about it, how they integrate CG, how they choreograph all the action scenes. It's a spectacle. It looks absolutely incredible. I'm going to hold back from getting quite as hype as I did in my review when I was talking about it, and I won't go too deeply on it. But I mean, everything about this show, in its visuals, just blew me out of the water. Not blew me out of the water, blew everything else out of the water. I wasn't in the water.
Blew you out of the atmosphere?
Blew me out of the atmosphere. There you go. And then there's the soundtrack, which I actually took me a while to be like, is this really my favorite? Like, is something by Bloomin' Hiroyuki Sawano my favorite OST? And I think it is. Like, of anything. Like, I started listening to the OST just after I finished watching the show. I still listen to it every day since I stopped. None of it's gotten old. There is so much variety, so much impact, so many different emotional triggers. Not triggers. We don't want that word.
Have you been triggered?
So many things I have been triggered emotionally by the glory of this soundtrack. But there's so much on there, and so much that's just dealt with such class in comparison to what we've seen from Sawano before, heard from Sawano rather. And like, I listened to this soundtrack and then I listened to some of the other things he's done afterwards, and I'm just like, man, you can tell how much more effort he was putting into this when he was making it. And it's just incredible. It really is just... It's an incredible package with everything that goes into it. So that's my thoughts on Unicorn.
I'm actually surprised that you put it in your honorable mentions, because I thought it'd be in your top 5 or something. Maybe number 5 or maybe even number 4.
Yeah, I definitely considered it. Like, the distance between the 7 shows that I'm talking about here is fairly minimal. I mean, number 1 is what everyone assumes it's going to be, and that's never not going to be number 1 on any list I make of my favourites, just for personal reasons. But the distance between the rest of them, I could swap it around as much as I want, really. So the order they're in isn't really that big of a deal.
Well, all I can say is it's gonna be coming up very, very soon.
All right, banging. So what's your next honorable mention?
My next honorable mention, that this might bug a lot of people, because a lot of people hate this movie. It's perfectly agreeable to why, but I don't really care. I love it regardless. The Escaflowne movie. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, a lot of people hate it.
Oh. I want to see it now.
Yeah.
I've never even considered watching it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I watched the series and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like my favourite thing in the world, but it was bloody good. And I was just like, I'm done with Escaflowne.
Escaflowne
for a while.
You have a lisp now.
Nice, yeah, I'll definitely check it out somewhere.
But yeah, Escaflowne, or at least the series, it's there are 2 types of people who have seen Escaflowne. One, they absolutely adore to death and consider it to be one of the best fantasy anime out there. And 2, there are those who hate it to death, especially because the ending, they believe, ruined everything, and the way that it's paced, because, like, you know how Escaflowne is, like, goes at a breakneck pace, especially towards the latter half.
Yeah. Like,
everything is just squished into, like, a few episodes, and you're going, like, what's going on? So, yeah, there are those people. So, it's complete opposite of the spectrums. I happen to like it, but it's not to the extent where I go, this is blowing my mind, because the one thing that a lot of people will agree about Escaflowne is there are a lot of tropes to it. And
yeah, that's the thing that put me off in some regard, because when I watched it a couple of years ago when I reviewed it, and it was basically a case of I was thinking, have I missed my chance to watch this and enjoy it fully? Because I've seen so much since that's using these plot points. And even supposedly it was riddled with tropes for the time. But now, when you watch it now and you see how much this stuff's been used since, including how much it was used before that, it very much feels like a show that's lost a lot over the years.
Because the thing with Escaflowne is, a lot of those who like it admit that while it does have a lot of tropes, understands it and just runs with it and does the best it could do to its abilities. Because the fantasy genre in general, it's known for having a lot of similarities between like every different story, right? Like there's some form of magic, girl gets spirited away, or guy into a mystical land, yada yada yada. But the Escaflowne movie, what I do kind of respect doing, even though the ending was I guess everything in general kind of changed, was because everyone looked a lot more human, and this is going to put off a lot of people. Hitomi is a lot more depressing. Like, she feels more, I guess, genuine in a sense. Because Hitomi in the TV series is a lot more upbeat. She's very optimistic. She's always the first to try and cheer people up, right? And then in the movie, it's just the complete opposite. She's someone who is depressed. She quits the track team. I think the very first time we see her, she's on the roof just contemplating about life and death.
Just pedal back 1 second.
Sure.
What is the setting of the film? Is it like a Do You Remember Love kind of thing?
Or
is it like a sequel?
No. It's like a Do You Remember Love kind of thing. So it's
like
kind of like a
newly animated.
Yeah, it's complete
retelling.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the big things that really bugged me about the first Escaflowne series is the character designs.
Hey man, blonde Sephiroth?
No, the fucking noses.
The noses are
God.
The noses are pretty crazy.
Oh, God, I was like, what? And I am so glad they changed that in the movie, because the guy who designed the characters, I don't know if you've seen the show, Alain, but he did Paradise Kiss, the TV series.
Yeah. I love Paradise Kiss.
Yeah.
The
designs are wonderful. Like, it still stands very well to today's genre, or today's times.
Though you mentioning Paradise Kiss expects me to them to have taken all of the designs from Escaflowne and given them like piercings and mohawks.
No. Like, you can tell that, like, it has a very realistic aesthetic to it. So Hitomi looks like a normal girl. Vaughn looks like a normal person. Vaughn is a lot more literally cavemanish in the movie. Like, he's a lot more brooding. He's a lot less tsundere and just more upfront about a lot of things. And I guess that's the main appeal of it, because of how reckless it was in terms of both its storytelling and the way that they approached everything to it. They're just like, fuck it. Let's just imagine Escaflowne kind of never happened, and we will write our own story, but it's not a sequel. Like, that's the thing I can forgive it for. Because they're not destroying the original Escaflowne timeline.
Yeah. That's what I very much appreciate about Do You Remember Love and like Adolescence of Utena, in that they do a lot of different things and interesting things, and change a lot, which some people very much don't like, but at the end of the day it doesn't damage the original text in any form.
Mm-hmm. And the way that it ended, it's kind of similar to the TV series, but it feels a little bit more grounded, I guess, in terms of the way that it was drawn and the way that it scripted some stuff. I guess it's kind of contradictory considering that it's a fantasy, but I do like the way that it had its own rules and they just stuck with it, and they didn't do the frickin' fantasy saves everything.
Yep. Is it still like full up the arse with feathers though?
Yes.
And how does the animation quality compare to the TV
so much
series?
better.
Is it?
Yes, it's so much better.
Man, did they do any changes with the mechanical designs? Or the designs of the dragons?
No. There's not much difference with the mechanical designs, but with characters, it's complete 180.
Okay.
So the first time,
if they had changed anything about the design of the Escaflowne itself, like that thing is gorgeous.
Because the first time you see the movie, you're like, am I watching the same thing? Because the opening credits just opens with Vaughn just like killing everybody at sight. And that kind of rubbed people the wrong way, because they consider Vaughn to be this prince and to know manners more. But the one thing about Vaughn is that he really held back in the TV series, at least.
Yeah.
And he was a lot tsundere. That was I'm just gonna say now. Cinderace, no, just no. But yeah,
Right.
Escaflowne movie.
Banging. Wasn't expecting that one.
Yeah.
You've thrown me for a loop or two. Like, I think a lot of my picks are going to be really obvious things. And it's just like, it's just because, like, neither of us claim to be mecha experts in the slightest. Like, there's so much I haven't seen. And so a lot of my list is Gundam, because that's a big chunk of what I've seen. And so my next honourable mention is another one that might upset some people, and it's not in my top 5. But as I said, my top 5 is full of things that are very close together, and it's actually Zeta.
Ooh.
Zeta Gundam
Wow.
is my next honorable mention. Yeah, it didn't make it in the top 5.
Ooh.
Reason why it didn't make it in the top 5? No idea. Probably because I haven't seen it in a very long time, but that's also true of a couple of other shows on here. But Zeta is exceptional. I mean, you come off the back of Mobile Suit Gundam, the first series, which is a fantastic story, and I love it to pieces. But Mobile Suit Gundam, the original series, has some problems with how slow it is, with how semi-formulaic a lot of the progression is, with how it's just going through beating some enemies, and how the RX-78-2 is just like this indestructible thing that never loses, and there's sort of very little signs of very little chances of like characters dying, and apart from the situations where they tell you that character is going to die in the episode preview, which plays before the credits, but we won't go on to that right now. But Zeta really expands upon the idea of what Gundam is, and brings so much more to the table. It's got a lot more tragic elements, a lot more interesting elements, like the things they do with the characters, what they do with Shah, bringing him in as Quattro Brigida, and just the way they present the politics of it, and how they up the scale, and just what they do with the new protagonist. Because I mean, coming off of Mobile Suit Gundam, I was like, how are they going to top Amuro? And Camille is not a girl's name. He'll have you know that very quickly.
He's going to come to your house and just punch you right off the bat.
Yep. And it's really interesting, because just the main format of the story, with how they have the main sort of war in the beginning is between two factions of the Earth Federation. You have the Titans, and it's a lot of moral ambiguity, as with everything that happens in Gundam. But in Zeta, a lot more than in many series, there is a clear sign of the fact that one of the factions is doing something evil, saying that one of the factions are doing something wrong. You can look at them and say they are the bad guys, and then that develops into some different things later on. And I can't go into ultra specifics for a lot of the reasons why I love Zeta, because, as I said, it's been like 5-6 years since I watched it. But as always, mech designs are glorious. We've got Makoto Kobayashi on the job. We've got Mamoru Nagano on the job. We've got the introduction of like the Cubulae. We've got my favourite female character of all time in this series, being Haman Khan, one of the strongest and most interesting females in a position of authority. And she's an incredible woman.
I like how you adjusted positions of authority, because there's another female character who is very, very well developed.
Yes.
Perhaps one of the best.
I'll get onto you.
Yes.
But yeah, that's my brief sort of summary of Zeta. Obviously, everyone already knows how much I recommend everything Gundam. Like the original two are essential viewing for anyone who wants a foot in the genre. Right, so over to you, Sooin, with number 5.
My number 5 is something that you have mentioned. Yes, it's only one of two, but Gundam Unicorn.
Yeah.
Yes, Gundam Unicorn
take it away,
is.
I've already said all my thoughts on it.
Apart from what Alan said, the mech designs look gorgeous. The Banshee is perhaps one of the best designs of mechs I've ever seen.
Shoutouts to the perfect grade Banshee coming out soon. I'm gonna buy it so hard. Oh my god.
If there's a real great Banshee that's coming out, I will gladly buy it. Please, Bandai, make one, please.
I could see them making a real grade of the Unicorn, and then they'll do like all of the different forms.
That will be.
You'll get the Unicorn, you'll get the frickin' Phoenix, you'll get the Banshee, you'll get the Banshee Non, you'll get the full armor, you'll get the whole job. They like getting a lot of kits out of the single mold.
Yeah, but making a real great version, those pieces are gonna be a fucking nightmare to assemble, I feel like.
Yeah, it's just a case of whether or not they made it transformable, or if they went, which I think, with how they do real grades, they would. But, I mean, the transformation on the master grade is bloody finicky enough. with the small parts and everything, getting all the panels to open up. So on a smaller scale, it might be a bit.
No,
bit
they'll
too
probably
much.
just make it one transformation. Just leave it there as the default one.
Yeah, that's what they did with the high grades.
Yeah, they'll
because-
probably make like the unicorn version, and there's like, or the default one, and there's the
unicorn mode and the
yes,
destroy mode.
the destroy mode. But yes, Gundam Unicorn. What it does really well is that it takes all the Gundam tropes from what I've seen, does it well, and then gives us an ending that is complete, I guess, in a sense. I know you've already touched upon it earlier. How, I guess, the ending kind of really leaves people disappointed in a way of how it panned out. But it's better than just freaking, oh, here is the thing that you're looking for. It's actually just in your hearts. You've had it all along. That kind of freaking... Oh god, it's like you don't know how many freaking stories just ruined it with that kind of moment. Like they made it realistic as possible. The one thing I'm going to touch upon is the retro character designs. Yes.
They're beautiful.
Yes, because I've seen a lot of people just moaning on about it, how it looks really bad, like, and how outdated it is. And
What?
Yeah.
Who is this?
I'm
Where are
assuming.
they so I can fight them?
I'm assuming they're new to the genre, and I'm just like, oh god, what? Like,
I can understand it if people look at G-Reco and think it's weird looking, but not
no,
Unicorn.
Unicorn.
Like, the character designs are just
One
gorgeous.
of the main gripes was the hair design.
What? Have you seen Merida Cruz's bonnet? Like, oh my god.
Murder Cruise's bonnet, and one of them was Audrey's hair, which they said it felt very 80s, which it's supposed to be. It's retro with a new layer of paint on it, which happens to be very polished, very shiny, and very well presented. So, characters are very well established. Audrey is perhaps one of the better female protagonists I've seen to date, not just in mechs.
I love how strong she is.
Yep.
For her position, because she's such a young girl and she's put into this position where she has to choose to sort of go against the will of her own government for the greater good in many regards, and the way they pull that off and make it so it isn't just this like cliche bore fest, even though I'm sure some people will think that's exactly what it is, but that's not how it came across to me anyway.
And Merida Cruz, who is my second waifu.
One below Hybrid.
Yes, one below Hybra. She's only one below because I've known Hybra for a very, very long time. But Merida Cruz, perhaps one of the best supporting characters I've seen. Despite the little amount of time that she has, she is, like, they make sure that she's very well known throughout the cast. And what else is there to say that you haven't said? Because there's so many good things about it as well.
Yeah. I spent 15 minutes talking about them at one point.
Let's see. Oh, can I just say, friggin'... watch the dub, please. Everybody who's watching this, watch the dub of Gundam Unicorn. Because the man who voices Full Frontal is so much better than Shuichi Keita.
I'm offended.
Yes.
I can't like actively tell you why because I haven't heard the dub, but I can't see how Ikeda can be considered bad.
Well, he's not bad, it's just a matter of...
He's so good!
He's like 70, and like he's voicing someone who's in his early 20s.
It's Full Frontal, man.
Because, well, the thing... Full Frontal. He is not a porn star.
Yep.
Keith Silverstein. He has a very smooth, yet, I guess, snake-like in some ways. Which, it's...
You're just making it like, he sounds like Jafar. Full Frontal is actually Orochimaru.
I mean snake-like in the most complimenting way as possible. Like, he has a very...
I don't think you should say that if you go on a date with someone. Say, I like your voice.
It's very snake-like.
Gets me going.
Oh, God, yes. Keith Silverstein, he does the voice of Johan from Monster. He carries it over to Gundam Unicorn, but he sounds more regal and more formal and, I guess, more well-off in a sense. So there is a subtle difference there, but in the age demographic, Keith Silverstein just hits it out of the ballpark. Shuichi Ikeda, while he is good, there's the age gap that you can tell that he's voiced by someone who is considerably older than Char Aznable. At least in the later ones. Maybe in 0079 he sounds appropriate to his age.
I think for me, it's just a case of I'm so familiar with that voice, because I've heard it over hundreds and hundreds of episodes, that, like, it's just perfect to me, because that's how it's always been, and that's just the voice that's come from him. It's always worked, on top of the fact that it is just kind of bloody good generally.
But yes, Gundam Unicorn, one of the very few shows where I have little to complain about in any department, whether it be animation, art, character, story, music, especially the music, nothing to complain about there whatsoever. It's one of Saona's, or it is Saona's best. It captures the scale that he's capable of composing. So whereas something like Guilty Crown showed off his diversity in what he can do, Gundam Unicorn definitely represented everything that he could into one OST. So yes, Gundam Unicorn, my number 5.
Smash in.
Yes.
Okay, my number 5 is a show that I can almost guarantee we're going to be talking about again a bit in this podcast.
Oh?
Razafon.
Is it that low?
It's here. It's here on the list because I haven't seen it in a bloody long time. And I can't for the life of me fully bring up the reasonings as to why I love it so much. So I thought I'd leave it down here to save me having like my number 2 or something be a show where I go, yeah, this is why I don't really remember. But from what I remember of what I loved to pieces about Razafon is just the way it presents its world and the way how it sets up its story. And it's got this invasion going on. And how it completely throws everything into chaos, and then it puts you in this kind of post-apocalyptic area with these two people playing out this really unique and interesting romance, and just the directions it goes in the story, the morals and stuff it brings up. I just remember that I watched it not too long after I originally watched Ava, and here's the controversial opinion that everyone hates, is that I've just always preferred Razafon to Ava. Like, everyone always bangs on and says, oh, it's a big rip-off, and if you actually watch them, and there are similarities, but I think the sort of the way that Razafon deals with certain things that Ava deals with, I just got a lot more out of, even though they are actually very different, even though on the surface there's a lot of similarities. So I thought I'd mention the big E word, just
the E word,
just because before people start shouting. And obviously the music of Razafon is absolutely incredible. A lot of people aren't too fond of the designs of the Dolums and Razafon itself.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I've heard people not be too fond of it.
What the fuck are they?
It's pretty, yeah. Like, the Razafon itself is it's a pretty buck-wild design. It's very out there, it's very memorable. It's pretty crazy, but it's really interesting, and definitely in its contrast to the Dolums and everything else. It really stands out, and the way it's just got this kind of really angelic design with the wings on its head and everything like that. It's real something special, and I think one of the biggest things that I've always loved about Razafon is just how massive it's able to drive up emotions in certain scenes. Like, there's a specific scene that we're both thinking of, and that you're thinking of if you've seen the show, that involves a hotel room.
Yes, and it involves what do you call those things? A jumbotron, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That scene is one of the best directed, best executed, most incredibly
gut-wrenching,
beautiful, scarily, wonderfully terrifying, magical scenes in the history of the medium. And I think that scene alone is worth this show being on here. But as I said, and as it's been made very clear by my jumbling my words, that I can't fully remember everything I love about this series simply because it's been so many years since I watched it, and I am fully planning on rewatching it as soon as I can.
That will come up in a more higher part of my list.
Yeah, yep. I'm sorry for letting you down for it being number 5.
You failed me.
I'm sorry. Do you understand my reasoning though? If I'd put this at number 1 and then spurted out what I just did, I don't think it would have done it justice.
Yeah, maybe that's why it's up to me.
Okay, number 4 for you? So
Alright, my number 4, it's a franchise that Alan is very familiar with, that he made one video about the franchise, not the show specifically, is Macross Plus.
Ooh.
Yes. I believe that you have not seen it yet.
Not yet, no. All I've seen of Macross is the stuff with the original cast, being Super Dimension Fortress, Do You Remember Love, and Flashback, which is just kind of a short OVA that kind of ties up the loose ends of the love triangle, and has like lots of little clips. But that's what I've seen. I'm waiting. I'm going to watch the franchise as I did Gundam, and I've got Macross Plus on DVD. I have Macross 2 on DVD, so I'm just going to go through and watch them in order when I get a chance.
Yeah, Macross Plus is one of the pinnacles of what I call the Naruto Sasuke syndrome, where that's a terrible name to give it. Jesus Christ, what the?
I know the Athron Kira syndrome.
No, get out. Get out. No. But we're not going to talk about that.
The Rygar Arrow, that other guy syndrome.
Yes, who got pushed away.
Did fuck all.
God. Yes, that was the only two I could think of, like, at the fly. But, specifically, it's when two friends face off against each other, and then just magic happens. Macross Plus, as some people might not know, is Shinichiro Watanabe's first directorial work, and it is also, I believe, the first collaboration he did with Yoko Kanno, which also means that there's going to be godlike music.
Oh, that old chestnut.
Yes, I don't know if you guys have heard of Yoko Kanno. She composed a little known anime called what was it? Bebop Cowboy or Cowboy Bebop, was it?
Wasn't that like a Samurai Champloo ripoff?
I don't know. But yes, Macross Plus, it's on here primarily for, the animation. I know that my two runners-up was focused solely on that and the presentation.
God, Sooin, you're such an art fag. Literally.
Yes, it's there solely primarily because of its art and animation. I can understand that the character designs are kind of outdated for its time. Like, the big noses and the, how most of the hair is also focused on the front area of the skull also.
Yeah.
Like that kind of design, and very big hands and feet, gangly figures.
Yeah, we have.
Yes, in terms of the designs, it's kind of outdated, and I can understand that, but, oh my god, it's impossible to watch it and not go, holy shit, what the fuck am I watching? This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Because one of the key camera shots that Macross Plus uses is the perspective one, and the POV one specifically, where you are in the cockpit of the plane or the mech, and you witness exactly what is going on from their eyes.
That's actually not done all that often.
Exactly. Like, you might think that's something that's not very interesting because you're looking at it from an angle from the pilot, so you miss out like all the stuff that's happening on the outside. But your heart gets so pumped up when you see that, because you feel like you're experiencing the same thing that they're going through, and that's one of the key elements as to why Macross Plus is so appealing.
It's also a lot. When I've seen it used before, a lot of the time it's used to sort of highlight that turning point in the protagonist where they realize they're killing people. Because you then switch to seeing it from their perspective, and you're seeing this like the horror of war, like from their eyes, as opposed to from an outside perspective, and it's really good at sort of tunneling your vision in and getting you closer to the character's mind space.
Yeah, and it contains everything that it's known for being Macross. Like, they have the idols. There's a love story.
Fuck Love Live, Macross Forever, Ken, get on it.
I've seen Gargantia, but yeah.
Rina no Legrade.
DDR, the anime.
Yep.
But yeah, if you're just watching purely for the experience that is Macross Plus, yes, I do fully recommend it. I can't really say much without going to some kind of spoilers, which I do want to avoid because Macross is something that everybody should have a chance to watch. Like, the story might not be the greatest. Like, there are some stuff that makes you go, what? Like, what is going on here? But, in terms of what it set out to do and what it achieved as a result, Shoji Kawamori also directed it. That's like at the peak of his career. Now he's too busy doing Aquarion and Nobunaga the Fool or something.
Nobunaga the Fool.
And AKB48, rest in peace, Shoji Kawamori.
Shoji Kawamori, man. Like, he went from such great heights to like complete balls. Don't know how he did it. He probably got senile. No, actually, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say bad things about one of the greatest minds in the genre.
I guess he's at the point where he has his own studio, or at least he has a very large stake in it, which is Satellite Studios.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I don't have to make groundbreaking anime from now on. I'll just do stuff what I want and do shit.
Yeah.
So, even if you're not a big fan of mechs, even if you're not a big fan of action, they have an A-list staff, like Shoji Kawamori's director, Watanabe co-director. Those are also written by Keiko Nobumoto, who also partially wrote Cowboy Bebop and I think Wolf's Rain, and part of Space Dandy and Michiko and Hatchin. So she knows her stuff. Like, she does a wide variety of things. So even if you're not purely into mechs and you do want to see it, please do. It's a one in a lifetime experience.
Unless you watch it twice.
Twice of a lifetime experience.
Then it's a twice in a lifetime experience.
And it's also only 4 episodes, so
yeah.
Also, if you're able to get your hands on the manga UK dub, if you're able to, please watch into that one.
I also just want to say that if you are in the UK and you have any interest in watching anything Macross and don't want to spend too much money, the Macross Plus, like, Ultimate Edition that comes with the OVAs as separate entities and the film that combines them, it's like £1. Literally, it costs £1, like on eBay and everywhere. So it's not going to cost you anything to get a hold of. And that'll have you a nice manga UK dub on it. So there you go.
Because Bandai, they fucked up by redubbing the manga UK dub, which I don't understand why, because they were spending money over what already existed.
Yeah, maybe it would have cost them more to buy the rights for the UK one than it was to record it in-house.
Like, they got Bryan Cranston to dub. Like, the guy from Breaking Bad. Oh, if only they understood, like, how much of a big star he would be years later.
Yeah.
They probably would have kept it. It's one of the best dubs out there, in my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but yes, please go watch Macross Plus if you haven't. And same with you, Alain.
I will. I will watch it on my journey through the franchise. Are we ready for my number 4? Which is... It's Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS team. Oh, this show. This show is so good. Where were you expecting to hear this on my list soon?
8th MS team?
Yeah.
I know that it's one of your favorites Gundams of all time. So I thought 3, approximately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about where we are. But yeah, 8th MS team is, for me, an incredible story for what it does in Gundam in general. I mean, it's kind of hard at times to pick between this and War in the Pocket for the best kind of intimate, lower scale little Gundam story. And a lot of people choose War in the Pocket over it, but I've always preferred 8th MS team, even though War in the Pocket is bloody good as well. But yeah, 8th MS team is set during the time span of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and it dials it back. It takes you onto this kind of this much smaller battlefront with this kind of guerrilla warfare in this jungle, and it's just incredible the things it does with it. The main key plot point of 8th MS team is that at the start of the film, Shiro Amada, the protagonist, is sort of like lost out in space, ends up in a ruined Xeon ship, meets this woman called Aina, who is a Xeon pilot. And so they're on opposite ends of the battlefield. They're sort of holding each other at gunpoint, but they then have to basically help each other to help themselves stay alive. And so obviously they do their thing, and it sort of spawns this romance on opposite ends of the battlefield, which is something that has been done before, but I feel rarely is done at the level of class the 8th MS team manages to pull it off. And to move slightly away from story for a moment, when I first watched 8th MS Team, it was when I was doing my big run through the Gundam franchise, and I basically was going through everything in order. And I believe I watched this because it was airing sort of during the time frame of another series. I forget if it was X or if it was Wing, but the animation quality of 8th MS Team, because it was it's a massive turning point, because when I went from Wing or something, whatever it was that preceded it, I forget because I'm an idiot.
How could you?
Going to this, I know, right? I'm meant to know this stuff.
Yeah.
We even had a conversation exactly about this topic like 2 days ago, and I've forgotten already. We were talking about this exact thing.
Bring the Wikipedia page up.
No, man, I'm not cheating. But yeah, because this thing aired over a very long period of time. Pretty sure it was X that it was airing during. It just looks so good by comparison to everything else that's a lot of the other stuff that's around during its time. The animation is so crisp and beautiful, and the colours and everything that they do with the set pieces and surroundings and the backdrops of these of these kind of, there's these little ruined cities and stuff in this sort of jungle area, and the level of detail is unreal. Because it's very rustic, it's very down to earth, there's lots of like rust and grime and that kind of stuff. And also in the sound design is another thing that really, really stood out at the time in comparison to the shows that preceded it, in that everything just sounded so gorgeous and clear and on point, and it just like, just on a production quality level, how far it went up from everything else that preceded it in Gundam was astonishing. And then back on to some of the other story elements. Well, actually, talk about action for a second. Going back.
You're going to the topic that I've been talking about the past. Like,
yeah,
what?
basically, I just realised because I was talking about animation, completely glossed over the action scenes that are used with it. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier when you brought up, because this is kind of, 8th MS Team is for me the definitive real robot show. It's the best one for me in terms of what it shows of real robot and how it does it, and sort of, so the action scenes, they have real weight to them. Like everything that happens, it's not this kind of mad rush of speed and 3D movement and crazy action and like ridiculous shining fingers and everything. It's very tactical. It's very hide behind here, get to where the best place to shoot from. And one of the big memorable action scenes of the series is the one between the Goof Custom and the Easy 8 in this sort of little ruined village city little thing. And it's just, I'll never forget everything that happens in that fight. It really does stay with me. It's one of the most visually impressive, audioly is not a word, but sounds good, like it just left a massive impression on me, and everything about the show did. I think the only things that I've that some people don't like about the show and that I like less about the show is some of the stuff that happens towards the end, but I can easily forget about that. Yeah, when I can easily just not be bothered by that with the quality of everything else. And it's just such a nice little romance story. And the show is only 12 episodes long. And you can easily watch this thing if you haven't seen any other Gundam, if you just wanted a short little show to enjoy that stands on its own. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but just how it feels for this kind of thing to exist in Gundam. Because you've got these massive, huge, overscaled battles with thousands upon thousands of suits on either side, with ship captains and everything like that, and massive things on the line. This is just a little skirmish that doesn't have much in the way of huge implications on the war, but it really, really pulls through just because of how bloody strong the characters are, and they're all just brilliant in everything that they deal with. And I could go on for days about how much I love this show and why I think it's brilliant and why I think you should all watch it, but I think I should withhold my thoughts on that for a bit and just tell you to all go watch it. That means you, Sooin, because I know you haven't seen it yet, and you should watch it because it's good, right?
Yeah, I guess one of the strong aspects about 8th MS Team, from what I've heard, was even though the scales are much more smaller and much more toned down, I guess you could say, it's how much more impactful it is, because there is a smaller cast, so you feel like you're more invested into each one of them, whereas...
Yeah, it's the actions of the individual have greater relevance than in another series where it's not the actions of an individual, because it's a massive scale war between huge factions.
Whereas, Guy 1 or Pilot 276 dies, Like, you don't give a shit about them, but it feels like every life counts. So it makes the effect more impactful in a sense. But yeah, I do need to watch it sometime.
Yeah, you'll like it. It's a good one. I think it's quite a good show, personally. I heard BakaShift put it number 4 on his Mecha list.
Yeah, it's alright. It's alright.
Sooin, number 3, take it away.
Alright, my number 3 is something that will come up on your list soon.
Cross-Ange.
I wish.
No?
No, actually, Hotel Mulaflog is in there. But number 3, it might surprise you, but on the other hand, it might not. Turn Gundam.
Turn
Gundam.
Gundam.
Turn is Tomino's best work, by far. At least from what I've seen. Even though it has a reputation for being silly at times, and that's magnified by 100-fold in G-Reco. One of the big things that made Turn A stand out was it's a very uplifting show, in a sense, compared to like other series, like especially Zeta or something like Victory, for example, where everything is just
Victory.
or it's just death there and death there, to the right and left, and just everybody dying. But
everyone dying except bloody Shakti. Fuck's sake.
Go watch Victory Gundam, everybody.
Yoshi. Yeah, shut up, Shakti. Stop getting kidnapped. Fuck's sake.
Oh god. But yeah, Turn A, once again composed by Yoko Kanno.
That old chestnut.
It has one of, I think, the best ending song of all time, which is Suki no Mayo, or Moon's Cocoon. There's another variation of it that Yoko Kanno sings herself. It's under, no, seriously, it's under the pseudonym called Gabriella Robin.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's exceptional.
Yeah, it is an exceptional soundtrack, in general. But the ending song, the second one, just, it's on a whole new level. I think that is Yoko Kanno's, strongest soundtrack, or strongest ending song in general. But Turn A, I know you're going to talk about it, so I'll try to limit myself so you have a chance to.
Go ham on your stuff. It's fine. But, I'm probably going to have different things to say. So.
Kihel and Diana are perhaps one of the best female characters I've ever seen, not just in anime, but in all of media in general. The way they interact, like their relationships, everything that they do, it feels realistic. It feels, they're very rational as well. So they're very mature for their age, and oh god, I could go on all day. And Harry Ord is best Shark clone. I'm just gonna say that out right now. Do you agree with that, Alain?
Yeah. Best Shark clone.
Yeah.
Not sure if I put him over the man himself.
Oh, Shark clone. That's what I said.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking literal shark clones.
Well.
Yeah, he's better than Full Frontal.
Well. And what do you call it? I guess this is also the aspect where the Bishonen character designs just come into play. And whereas that kind of aesthetic is used to bring in or attract a different demographic, like let's say Gundam Wing or Gundam Sea was made to attract a female crowd more. That aspect was actually integrated into the story itself, which is rare because it feels like everything is justified for a specific reason. And that dance scene is perhaps one of the most WTF, but one of the most, how do I say it?
What about Naked in the River?
No, it's not the same as watching Laurent just wear a dress and just
fabulous.
Yeah, I guess he makes a great girl.
He does.
Yeah, he makes a better girl than a guy. But everything about Turn A, even though its battles are not nearly as wide scale as something like Unicorn, for instance, especially the Neo Zeong.
Yeah. I can't believe we both talked about Unicorn without mentioning that bad boy.
Everything is a lot more quiet, and that's what I kind of respect about it. Like, it feels quiet, but it feels more impactful, it feels more realistic. It has an expansive world. The aesthetic and the world that it takes place in, everybody wears, or at least in the Earth, wears like a Victorian era clothing style, I think it's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Victorian era clothing that they wear.
There's a lot of like references to that era,
Mm-hmm.
like particularly with how you see them deal with like impromptu hospitals and care and stuff like that in
Mm-hmm.
that little section.
Mm-hmm.
That's very that era.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it's kind of impossible to talk about Turner without mentioning the mech designs. As much as people do hate the designs, I do like it. I do think that it's unfortunate that I don't think it'll ever be accepted in any period whatsoever because it was too modern for its own good. Whereas something like Double O, for instance, I feel like will always be regarded as one of the better design ones because it's very contemporary, yet it's very respectful to its predecessors, whereas Turn A just completely went off the board and just Sidney did whatever he wanted to.
Yep. I respect him for that.
Yeah. Like, it has its own charm. He
could turn it, he could put cows in it.
Yeah, but mustaches.
It carries cows in its chest.
Mustaches, and the cockpit is literally located in the cockpits.
I don't see anything wrong with that, personally.
No, it just shows that Tomino has a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm. We know that.
Oh, yeah.
Days from G-Reco. Like,
oh my god!
Say what you want about G-Reco. That shit's funny.
Like batting people away with a Gundam hands and
just all the designs, man. Like the freaking.
What was it?
They're doing
the Elf Bullock, I think it's called.
Yeah, Elf Bullock. It's all so good.
Yeah, it shows that Tomino has a great sense of humor. There's a very childish side to him that he doesn't really reveal otherwise, like in interviews or anything, where people just assume he's like a grumpy old guy, just hates everything. But Turn A is like the encapsulation of everything that he did right, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's going to come up later in your list, Alan, so I will finish it here now. Turn A. Very good show.
Okey-dokey.
Not a lot of people are gonna like it. It has many references to UC and other past timelines. So
I'd say it can absolutely exist on its own.
yeah, you could. No, it's like you can watch it standalone, but you're not gonna get like the mini references here and there located throughout the series. It's kind of like Unicorn.
Yeah, it's much lesser extent than Unicorn though. I would say.
Oh yeah.
Because Unicorn, you're going to lose a lot more than you would with Turn A if it's your first show.
Well, Unicorn just, I guess in general, because it takes place in UC.
Yeah,
whereas,
because it is like a continuation with returning characters.
So yeah, Turn A. Great show. In general, watch it.
Okay, moving on to my number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Makuros. 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 It is the original Super Dimension Fortress Macross, which is what I preluded earlier by saying that it was a show that I gave a lower rating to than Gundam Unicorn, but ratings are completely meaningless and pointless, and I do them for no reason and pull them out of my arse.
There we go,
so
folks.
That's
Alan
why
is not a professional.
Nah, man. If I see the word objectivity and I stare at it for too long, I start to feel ill.
Alan just spews emotions.
He does. And as does Macross. Oh my god. Like, how did it take me until this year to watch this show? Aside from the fact that it cost me like 150 quid to finally be able to buy it.
Oh god.
I feel like I'm going to try and say some things that aren't just literally ripping everything I said from my review, but Macross, I was completely astonished after watching it that I just sat through something that didn't feel like anything else I'd seen. It's such an interesting and really unique and amazing take on an alien invasion story and how it deals with it, because Macross it's very, very focused on culture and the idea of culture and how the stark contrast of the human race in its culture and everything that it does for recreation and fun in comparison to the alien race, the Zentradi, who don't know anything but war, don't know anything but conquering, don't know anything but living for the sake of living and living for the sake of expanding their race and just getting rid of any sort of like unnecessary things that are there for fun as opposed to for achieving a larger goal. Original Macross basically takes so many different genres, so many different things, and just sort of combines them into this just incredible package where each component of its story perfectly bounces off of the other. And so everything's relevant and everything's interesting. Like there's a big emphasis on like idols and music and pursuing that kind of career and the sort of like not like a simple kind of like utopian take on it like you see in some idol shows. It's basically a case of like, this is entertainment business. This isn't hard. Like this isn't easy. This is hard work and everything. And then like the Macross has always been very, very linked with romance in general, and the sort of big love triangle that serves as a centerpiece for that. It was done in such a brilliant way because the two female leads are so different to each other, because you have Lin Minmei, this very young, incredibly feminine up and coming idol who's very naive, wet behind the ears, isn't really 100% confident in the way she lives her life. And then you have Misa Hayase, who's was brought up in the military, has known nothing but war her whole life, and just the contrast between these two, how they each deal with love, and how Hikaru, the protagonist, deals with it as well. It's an incredible story. It's something that I think everyone should watch. It's something that I have never seen anything else do before on this level, because as I said, like when I first started talking about it here, it really is shocking that I'd never seen anything like this before, because it's such a big deal. It's such a big thing. It's a story about war. Like, war is one of the biggest things that's ever shown in any series. It's all over the place. And this is a story that I'd never seen done. And it's a story that's like 30 years old. It's an incredible series. I know that you've seen you've just seen Do You Remember Love for this story. Briefly, my brief thoughts on Do You Remember Love is that it is good, but it cuts out a lot of what makes this one good, because a lot of what makes Super Dimension Fortress Macross so good is the side characters and the side romances and the side stories and little things here and there that build up together to create its world. And there was basically none of that in Do You Remember Love, because they didn't have the time to develop people beyond the main trio. But what are your thoughts on original Macross just based on Do You Remember Love?
Yeah, one of the big things about Do You Remember Love was it felt like I'm missing something. Whereas Do You Remember Love is very good on its own. It should be praised for accomplishing as much as it did in that short period of time compared to how many episodes did Macross have? 30? It's
36, but Do You Remember Love covers the first 20 something?
Yeah.
Because there's two arcs in it. There's basically there's a major ending point, and then the latter arc of the series slows down a lot and sort of ties up loose ends more than anything else.
Yeah,
which is something that some people don't like, but and is also something that a lot of people very much praise about Do You Remember Love, and it takes the much larger scaled portion of the story.
Because one of the things I noticed when I was watching Do You Remember Love was how romance is still a big theme in the movie, or at least in Macross. Because when you compare it to something like Gundam, which they consider so trivial and so minimal, and when you see something in Macross where it's one of the centerpieces, or it was one of the main focuses, like, it's a really breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it's basically like when I say look at any given Gundam series, apart from 8th MS Team, I will say it's a sci-fi mecha show. When I look at Macross, I will say it's a mecha romance show, because that is a massive part of what makes it what it is. It's not just kind of like here's a romance that's happening because they're there. It's a massive part of the story, and it's relevant to the larger things that are happening. So, any other words from you on Do You Remember Love? Or anything you would like to pipe in?
I need to see Macross.
You do. You fucking do. I finished it, and the main thing is I finished it, and I was like, how the bloody hell would you watch Do You Remember Love first?
This is coming from someone who saw The Adolescence of Utena first over the series, okay?
Have you actually seen Utena yet, the series?
No.
I guess you just like watching movies? Because it's quicker
than watching...
Exactly.
Like, it's so much of a hassle these days to watch. Like, even a 26-episode series, I'm just like, oh god. I need to find a time to sit down and marathon.
Oh.
Like,
yeah, I fully completely recommend original Macross. I mean, you've all seen my review, probably, maybe. I keep saying that about my videos, but
Stop
this is my
plugging
channel.
your videos.
I'd assume that this thing on my channel about the topic of the things that I'd reviewed would have been watched by people who have watched those, but anyway.
Everybody, go watch my Evangelion review.
Yeah, you do that.
Yeah, everybody watch my Evangelion review, everybody.
It's something special.
Yeah, it's pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, one big thing I do want to say about Macross, and that you will have all noticed by where it is in my tops in comparison with other things, is I do very much think this is a much better series to watch as your sort of first little entry into like really old mecha shows than any of the older Gundam series. Because it's so much more accessible. It's so much more, you've got your entire story there. Like, in terms of this group of characters, it's a film that retells this story, and then a tiny OVA that wraps up this story. And that's it. In terms of how complete and how well everything ties together, I just feel like it's a step above original Mobile Suit Gundam in that regard, which is a big deal coming from me.
Well, I guess in that sense, because Mobile Suit Gundam was already out by almost a decade by then, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So then I'm sure that they took some inspiration from Mobile Suit Gundam as well.
It wasn't a decade, it wasn't that long.
Or was like at least 5 to 10 years between, I'd say.
It was like 5 years.
Yeah.
I think.
And it's, God. I guess if you're getting into the mech genre in general, not Gundam specifically, I guess Macross would be better because there's so much to consume with Gundam. And there's no sign of stopping regarding expanding the UC timeline. So I guess that barrier
it's pretty much endless. Whereas this, it's a self-contained story. Once you have watched this story is over.
Yeah.
Because all of the other Macross series a lot of them are set in the same universe, but they're set like hundreds of years after, thousands of years after. So you're not going to have to worry about continuity or anything in your head in that regard.
Does the technology remain the same?
I assume so. I haven't seen the latest
humanity
stuff,
kind of slowed down on their progression.
Obviously, I can't get through talking about Macross without talking about design. And Shoji Kawamori, man, the SDF one, holy shit! Like, oh my god, it's incredible. The amount of detail in that thing's kind of internal design and its function, beyond how it looks incredible. But the function of how it exists as this basically. I haven't told anyone what it is if anyone doesn't know. I just blanked on that. Basically, the SDF-1 is this massive ship, transforming ship that has like a big assault mode that looks like a dude. And it's basically full of, it contains cities within it. And they go on a big expedition to space to confront the alien race. And there's thousands upon thousands of people living in this massive, massive machine. And just the way they make it feel, it just feels like it works. Like, I look at this thing and I'm like, yeah, this thing works. Like, how they're living in here, how they're living their lives, what they're doing in here. As I just say the word again, the detail is off the charts.
If you thought the detail in Macross was good, wait till you watch Macross Plus. Yeah, because Macross Plus is remembered for its choreograph and its detail.
I'm not talking about, like, animation detail?
No.
Like, visual detail?
No, like, visual detail, like... I think from what I've seen of Do You Remember Love, does it look better than the original Macross? I'm assuming it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're talking about, like, in terms of what I'm talking about with this detail, I'm talking about in, like, function and design.
Okay.
Because it doesn't look detailed, because the Macross does not look good. Like, original Macross looks like poo in a lot of places, and that's one thing I will say against it, that you will have some rather jarring moments of things that do not look nice.
The legs are missing.
Whereas Do You Remember Love looks absolutely incredible. So if this entire series was animated to the level of Do You Remember Love, holy shit, this thing would be a contender for best thing ever. Yeah, moving on from the SDF-1, the Valkyries, transforming jet planes, turn into robots, fucking badass, I love them, everything, I love it. I will stop now though, I'll wrap my thoughts up on Macross, because everything I've just said, you've all heard before if you watch my video, so there we go. I will kick things back over to Sooin for her numero dos.
Okay, so my number 2, it's not going to surprise anybody. It is Evangelion. specifically Neon Genesis Evangelion.
What about Death and Rebirth?
Fuck that show.
What about the manga where they're in school?
What about Eva 2.0 and 3.0? Evangelion, there are some disputes whether it's not it's a mecha show or not because there are so many aspects that contradict it from what defines as a mech.
A guy sits in a thing
Cries.
that has the physical appearance of a robot.
Yeah.
It counts. Alright?
But yeah, like, Evangelion, I'll be talking more about, I guess, the emotional impact more than anything, because that's its main draw. How Anno was specifically able to relate personally to the audience because of the way that he opened up his emotions to everything. Like, watching Eva, it's impossible to not feel guttural, it's impossible to not feel depressed at some of the scenes that are shown in Eva.
I'm not going to have a huge amount to bounce off of with Eva, because again, it's one of those shows that I watched in my youth of anime viewing, and it's been a very long time. Like, when I watched Eva was when I was not at the right mind frame to enjoy Eva the most, I guess. So I do very much have incredibly strong feelings towards it, but obviously not on my list just because I have such a poor memory of it. The main things I remember from Ava, I mean, are like rebuilds, obviously, because I've seen them all recently, and End of, because I've watched it multiple times.
Ava is something that you have to watch when you're in a specific mindset. Like, if you're all, if you're in a, like, I guess in a stable mind where everything is alright, I guess it's not really the best time to watch it. Or if you're like, I don't know, 11 or 10 when you first watched it, like I did initially, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah, like, I'm glad I gave it a second shot, and it's one of my all-time favorites. Mech designs, though, like, cause this is a mech podcast, and so we do have to talk about mechs.
Yep.
Ava, the units themselves, gorgeous. Unit 1, gorgeous. Everyone is designed very well. It's responsible for changing the designs of the later mech designs that were about to appear. It's responsible for slimming down the aesthetic, making everybody look taller, more ganglier. It was the show that essentially pushed towards modernity. It's the show that pushed towards modern mech design. Mm-hmm. So
it's definitely, I mean, Ava has always been, aside from being an incredible series, it's one of the most, potentially the most, behind Gundam and potentially Macross, like, influential series in the genre. Mm-hmm. And just in terms of how it did things, how it shaped it, I honestly would be terrified to see what the state of the genre would be nowadays without it. Because it sort of, like, there was a period where lots of things were just trying to build on and replicate what's been popular before. Ava comes along, does something completely new, and really shakes things up.
And everybody is getting inspiration from Ava now.
Yep.
Which I can't blame, because they were popularizing the tsundere, the yandere, and I guess the Shinji archetype now. But no, I do not hate Shinji, but I do understand why a lot of people hate him, but I don't think he's a bad character.
I think, like, I can understand why people dislike Shinji. Like to the point where like, they'll see Shinji on the screen and they'll be like, I don't really like this guy. But to say Shinji's a bad character is impossible.
Like, just because,
in my regards. He's I think he is potentially the single most human character in the history of the medium.
The thing with Shinji is, liking or hating a character is not synonymous to good characterization. I think that's the thing I tell the people.
That's the thing. Like, in any show we have an antagonist. If you don't like the antagonist, that's kind of the point.
Yes.
In some regards. Like, there are antagonists that are, like, kind of cool and awesome, and you're like, yeah, it's Ahsoka, he's a badass, I love him. But then there are the antagonists that you just have to hate because they're evil. And then this is kind of a situation with that, where Shinji is very human, and you're meant to, and, like, perhaps he's meant to annoy you because of how human he is. And he's not just, like, running off being a badass like everyone else in the genre. He's acting like a kid in his position would do.
Like, he is the pinnacle of what you would call an anti-hero. Because he doesn't possess any of the things that would that would be appealing to anyone. Like, he's how do I say it? Because the Byronic hero is considered the classical anti-hero to some people. Like, they're very charming, they're intelligent, but they have this one fatal flaw that just makes them unlikable in a lot of sense. But Shinji possesses none of that. Like, everybody just hates him because he's whiny, he's spineless at times, he runs away, he does everything that pushes everybody's buttons. But that's kind of the point, in a sense. There's a lot of videos about Eva who can already explain it, so...
Yeah.
Eva, for what it is, there are some disputes whether or not it's a mech show, because Eva itself is not really like all circuits and metal and like a bunch of electricity just powering it. It's more like a biomechanical suit.
I think there's enough general machinery in the world of Evangelion that we can count it anyway.
But yeah, in that case, yes, number 2, Evangelion, specifically Neon Genesis. So I'm gonna turn it to you, Alan.
Trying to think if I have any other sort of closing thoughts on Eva first. I mean, Ava was a big deal to me when I first watched it. Simply because it was so hyped up by everyone. It's because of like, it's Ava, you know, like it's this thing that's kind of a rite of passage, something you have to see. I did get so much out of it, even when I was in this position in my life. I think I was probably like 16 or something. Like, I was in school. I wasn't really like it's basically sort of in comparison to the stuff I was watching at the time. Like, I went from like Naruto to Dean Fate Stay Night to Full Metal Panic to FMA to Ava, and it's kind of it was a massive difference. And I'm honestly kind of appalled at myself that I have never rewatched it in sort of with my current mindset. Even with my lack of memory on it, what I'll say about it is just the things that are a lot more relevant to this podcast, being how they dealt with the action, how they dealt with the weight and feeling of what the Avas were, and how they moved in battle, and we could talk about End of Ava here, right? Sort of lumped in with this, yeah, and just kind of that obvious the obvious massive fight scene between Ava 02 and the mass production suits in the film. I would put that in my favorite action scenes of all time, even outside of the genre. That thing is absolutely spectacular, and it's going back to what we were talking about earlier, of there being like genuine feeling behind motion and stuff like that in an action scene, and it really is something special. So I'll leave my thoughts on Ava at that, and maybe at a later date in one of these podcasts after I've rewatched it, I can fill you in a bit more on the stuff that's actually a little bit deeper.
I guess with Ava, you can't really... well, this is from my perspective. Don't watch it expecting something deep. Go into it expecting for an emotional experience rather than something intellectual.
Apparent depth, actual depth.
That kind of pissed off some people, apparently, but, well, if you're easily butthurt or easily triggered, by all means, be sure to unfollow me, because I'll be sure to post some more offensive stuff. But yes, you're number 2, Alan.
Yeah, so my number 2 is a show we have mentioned already, a show that Sooin pretty much probably already knows is in this position. Turn A, turn A, turn.
Century
Gundam.
Gundam. Dun, dun, dun.
I had to do that again. Like, for people who don't know what we're going on about when we do that, just watch the Turn A Gundam OP. Just some random guy that sounds like he's from Birmingham just chirps in and just goes, Turn A Gundam. Which for many people might have been where they learned how to say Gundam. Because, like, when I first got into Gundam, the amount of people I knew that pronounced it Gundam.
Gundam?
I was like, oh no, there's no N on the end, bro. But anyway, Turn A.
God damn it! Turn
A is my favourite Gundam series. It has been since I watched it, and will probably continue to be until I die, until they animate Crossbone.
That's a pretty bold statement there.
Yeah, well, it's a challenge, that is. It's like Tomino, man. Make Turn A 2. make the bridge between Turn A and G-Reco. But anyway, me saying that Turn A is my favourite Gundam series has always maybe rubbed me the wrong way. Because Turn A is so different to the standard fare that you're getting in Gundam. Like, if you watch Turn A as your first Gundam series, and went, okay, so that's Gundam, and then went on to watch literally any other Gundam series, you'd be like, what?
You're in for a
this
loop.
is entirely different. Yeah, it's completely different in the way it presents its world, the way it handles its themes, and just sort of how it uses its politics and stuff like that. Because instead of this, instead of the very, very political kind of capitalist stuff that's happening in some Gundam shows and like conflicting ideals like that, Tenai has a monarchy, and it's very, very strange with how it's dealing with the conflict between two factions. Instead of it being like warring between Earthnoids and Spacenoids, it's people coming down from the moon to Earth, and it's really bizarre in that regard as to how it fits in terms of how it feels as a Gundam show. But that aside, it completely floored me when I first watched it. I knew it was going to be good because one of my big Gundam friends who I've watched a few things with in the past, it was his favorite, and I was like, okay, if it's this guy's favorite, then I'm going to get a lot out of it. And just wow, like everything about it, how different the characters are, like the things they do with the characters, the things they do with the culture of this world, and as Sooin mentioned before with Diana and Kihail, just has anyone seen like a Good Sister Act story before? People that are apparent twins and they swap roles, and then you take that role with like a princess and then a normal girl, and then they switch roles, and you see this like and they deal with the vast differences in their cultures. It was an incredible thing. Easily my favorite application of that little plot piece.
Kihel and Diana, while they do come from different backgrounds, they are very talented in politics, which is a great plus sign, because not many women in Gundam are very involved in politics in general. So it's a great personal relationship to have with someone like Kihel and Diana. And whereas they, even though they're very similar, they both have very different desires.
Mm-hmm. There's so much I can say. A lot of it will be sort of retouching upon the things that Sooin said earlier, but just its sense of humor, its tone more than anything, and it can be very serious. It's got a very important and impactful story to tell, but it doesn't do it in a way that makes it feel like it's trying to force drama down your throat or anything like that. It's like there are things that are happening. There are important things that are happening, like things happening in this world, specific things happening in this world that should make you go, oh, and just sit down and just look at what's just happened. It's a show where many times I would not just hit the next episode. I would basically just sit there after it and take in what had just happened, because there's so many things going on with like the agriculture and all these different topics that just aren't seen in Gundam.
Yeah, it makes you care about stuff that you never expect in Gundam. I think that's one of the strongest aspects, because Gundam, you're just all washed up in, or rather, you're all caught up in the politics and the war and all the conspiracy and that kind of stuff. But Turn A is very subdued in that kind of stuff. It's very you feel like you're getting to know the world rather than just one aspect of a race, for example. You feel like you're getting to know everything.
It is an extension of why I get a lot out of 8th MS Team, because it is more down to earth. It's one planet and a moon, as opposed to like all of these different factions, all the different space colonies and everything like that. And it's all dealt with on Earth. There's, as Sooin mentioned earlier, there's none of the huge scale battles, but This is, for some people, a thing that they don't like about it. Like, this is a series that does the whole power creep thing, because the Turn A itself, the calamity of the white doll, it's the things it ends up being able to do are pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, shout-outs to Butterfly Wings, but I can't fault it. It's so good. And my thoughts on design. First of all, on the character designs, I absolutely love them. Like, again, the sense of humor rolls into the character designs. Like, people like Gingham, people like
Harry Ord Shades.
Harry Ord Shades. Like, what's the is it Corin, the guy that pilots the Red Kapul?
Is it?
I forget what
Yes.
his name is.
I
The
think
guy
it
that pilots the guy that pilots the Red Capul. Like that guy, he just looks so strange and interesting, and he's such a whack job. It's just there are so many things in the show that just make me smile. Like, and then contrast that with the things that are genuinely serious and matter and have impact. And there's so much to be memorable. Like everything about how the show looks and feels. It's so bright. It just makes me feel good. It makes me happy. And the mechanical designs, like, I actually flipping adore the design of the Turné. I respect so hard how different it is, how weird it is, how it's got a cockpit, how it's got a bloody mustache, how it's got frickin' like these weapon holders in its chest that don't have weapons in, that he puts frickin' cows in where they're doing the farming. Like, the Capuls are just these derpy little tubby circles with these gangly arms, and it's just, I love
and
it.
the gold
frickin',
sumo.
The frickin' gold sumo, man, and the weapon it holds, and everything about it is just, it's beautiful. I love it. And one of the most amusing mechanical designs, you know, the mobile flat,
Oh god.
the black thing that just looks really strange. Even that, I get a kick out of it. I think a big reason why people really don't like the design of Turné is because of how different it is because it takes away everything that the franchise had built up to that point, and then just kind of throws it out the window. As you say, tries to be a bit too modern for its own good. But for me, it gives it such an intense level of charm and identity. And I just look at it as like, it's Turné, man. Like, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, like, it has its own visual identity, which doesn't make the case anymore for a lot of Gundam shows.
Yeah. Like, a lot of Gundam shows, you look at it and be like, yeah, that looks like UC. Like, yeah, like, I think, like, Unicorn has a very distinct design to its things. I think something like that, like Double O, has a very distinct design to its things. But you still look at them and go, yeah, this is built upon something else. I look at this and be like, this is the new Zaki. This is the new lead Gundam. But whereas Turné, I just go, yeah, this is all Turné. Like, you wouldn't take anything from Turné and plop it into a different Gundam show and be like, yeah, that fits there. It's here. It works here. And it works here alongside the other technology that they just have on the world. Because you have things like, you've got like biplanes, you've got airships, you've got all this kind of technology. It's not like hyper advanced stuff. It's very low key. And I love it.
Which is surprising because Sid Mead was responsible for doing Blade Runner. And it's like completely...
That is pretty stark contrast.
Yeah.
But Sid Mead's a talented man. He knows what he's doing.
Too bad Tomino regrets that decision.
Well, Tomino regretted everything he put into G-Reco.
And hey, we liked it.
We did like it, and I think we're the only two people that did.
Oh
my Sakura!
no.
Anyway, did you have any other thoughts on Turné? Obviously, actually, I just want to, I think Sooin went over it enough for me to not need to re-embellish, but yeah, the music in Turné is absolutely incredible.
Turné, it might be, I think, Yoko Kanno's best work. God, or at least the ending. I've already mentioned it, but
yeah,
it's God.
Guys, watch Turné
Please.
for the love of balls.
No,
if
well, if you're gonna watch Turné, you might as well watch some UC stuff, because I feel like you don't really fully get to appreciate it until
Well,
you
I'll
see
put it like
some of
this:
Turné.
there are a lot of people that kind of refuse to sit there and watch all of Gundam because it's so much. If all you want to do is watch a Gundam show and be like, I just want to watch one, alright? Just want to watch one. I would say, watch this, but also watch another one, because this isn't like that one. Just watch this, just watch this for a good show. Like, because it's not like most Gundam shows. You're not going to come out of this and be like, yeah, I got a good idea of Gundam now. It's just a fantastic series. I think maybe a lot more people would have seen Turné if it wasn't a Gundam show at all. If it was like Turné Bangle.
Turné Mech.
Yeah, Turné Robot. And people were like, yeah, Robot Show, I'll watch that.
I wonder how much they advertised regards to the design involvement Sid Mead had. Do you think that might have made a bit of a difference?
Potentially. I think if the series did have more traditional Gundam designs to it...
Oh yeah, then by far it would be more
would have
popular.
Definitely sold better, because I think it's appalling how unpopular this show is. I mean, it's held in very high regard.
Well, it's
like
held in high regard to some, but even some of the hardcore Gundam fans have mentioned that they just outright hate Turné for whatever reason.
Probably because it's different to Gundam. Like, as I said.
Because they feel like it's a bastardization of the franchise, which I don't feel they have a right to, because Tomino was the one responsible for creating it.
Yeah.
But Yeah, like Turn A, it's very different to everything else Gundam related. Like mechs in general, I feel like Turn A is just very different. But if you're gonna watch one mech show from Gundam, watch Turn A. Yeah. Even if you're not gonna watch any Gundam shows from now on, just make sure you watch Turn A.
By all means, please watch everything, because a lot of it is very, very, very good. Some of it's not good. Victory is not good.
Yeah.
Destiny is not good.
Yeah.
But Turn A, and loads of other stuff, you'll get a lot out of Gundam as a franchise if you watch it.
Because
I tell this to people all the
first
time.
half of Turn A, it's slow for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people have mentioned that. But towards the second half, that's where everything just kicks into gear.
Yeah,
and,
but the thing is, like, I look at Turn A, and I say, yeah, it is quite slow, but I don't see that as a negative. It's taking its time to introduce you to these characters and to build up this world, to make the stuff that happens in the latter half matter.
Well, the thing with, like, 50-episode series is they use a large chunk of time that feels slow is because they're busy building up the world, essentially. So, the first half is usually used to establish the world that the characters live in, because people need to familiarize with everything, so that's why everything feels slower. That's why stuff like Eureka 7, for example, or at least a lot of people have complained about being slow, but it was trying to establish the world the universe that they're in.
Anyway,
Yes.
Turn A, bloody good. Watch it.
Please.
Sooin, number one.
Yes. My number
Take
one
it
is something that some of you might not have expected, including you, Alan, is Victory Gundam.
I hate you.
So, Victory Gundam. Uso, great character.
You just love that depressing shit.
Shakti,
she's so good. How she held that baby. How she kept going, oh, I'll end the war. I'll go talk to the bad guys and that'll fix everything. Oh no, I got kidnapped. Oh no, Shakti got kidnapped. I'm gonna go save Shakti. Hey Shakti, you're back with us now. I can't believe I got kidnapped. Thanks for saving me. Oh, but the bad guys are still being bad. I'm gonna go talk to them again. Oh no, I got kidnapped. That happened 4 times.
Shakti was responsible for initiating many of the plot points.
Sooin, stop it. You haven't seen it, and I hope you never watch it.
I will.
I don't want to put you through
No, I
it.
will, just to piss you off.
God, I reckon you're gonna love it as well. It's just full of dying. It's just like, it's like a Kamiga Gundam.
Oh god, no. I'm gonna hate it then. Jesus.
It's just like there's a section where they just introduce crap tons of characters,
And you just kill it off.
and then they just kill them off one per episode, and then and the protagonist is watching each time. It's to make him realize the horrors of war. It's like, Tomino, did you just forget how to write for a bit?
It's funny, because whenever you go on the forums, or if you go anywhere and type in most depressing Gundam, 90% of it will say it's Victory.
It's not. It's depressing. You feel depressed when you're watching it. 'Cause you're like, I could be watching literally anything else.
I could be watching Turn A, but instead I'm watching this crap right here.
Yep. Apologies to anyone who does like Victory. I fully respect your opinion if you do like
Yeah,
it. I just
yeah,
happen
you
to
like
not
it
quite-
if you-
I just happen to not like it. That's my personal
If you
opinion.
like it, go ahead.
It's my least favourite Gundam series. I genuinely think it's worse than Seed Destiny.
Really? Well, we're gonna have a chat
Yes.
after this.
Yeah.
We could make an entire episode out of that.
Okay, your actual number
Okay,
one.
my number
please.
one is Razafan.
Yeah.
Razafan, I'm sure Alain has already said it before. It's kind of different from what you see in a traditional mech, because of the way that it looks, the way that it functions. Razafan, like Evangelion, it has a very personal quality to it that I absolutely adore, and I'm very emotionally attached to it. For example, if you say Razafan is shit, I will go after you and I will hunt your family down. No, I'm joking.
Razafan's
I'm
just a
joking.
stupid piece of
Yeah,
shit.
Razafan is just an Evangelion clone, nothing else. Oh my
It's
God.
trying to be Ava and fail because
Yeah,
shit. It doesn't have any
Evangelion's
fucking
chompy
Asuka or Ray
down.
in it. Oh my god, what's the fucking point of a piece of shit, man? Religion.
Crosses. But yeah, Razafan is considered the pinnacle of the Evangelion bastard children, the red hair and all. And has a very divided fan base. Those who hate Evangelion but love Razafan, and there's the vice versa group who completely denounce it and consider Evangelion to be superior, which I do find it odd, because while on the surface, as Alan has said previously, Razafan does have similarities, boy gets caught up in a battlefield. He has to force himself to go into a robot, yada yada yada. Like, there are all these like small little aspects that will make you immediately draw comparisons to Evangelion, but the way that it ends out, especially, it's very different. Whereas Evangelion is supposed to be something that it felt like it was being written as it was going. Like, I don't know if you also got that feeling, Alan.
I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
Because of how long it's been.
Because Rosaphon is something that's meant to be very complete. Like, from the get-go, like, they had a story. They knew how it was going to end and how everything was going to happen in between. And it had one of the most complete endings that I could ever ask for. So Rosaphon, while it's a show that it's meant to make you feel complete, Evangelion isn't. And that's why those two, it's one of the key reasons why. Let's see, what else can I talk about? The music. In case you guys didn't know, no, Yoko Kanno did not do the music.
Oh, you're going to pretend she did, though.
No.
She must have had some finger in
it
here.
It was actually composed by another person I respect very much. Her name is Ichiko Hashimoto. She also...
Gonna marry her too.
Yes. I have a harem now. To those who say Ayato is a better character than Shinji, or those who say Shinji is a better character than Ayato, vice versa, I have to tell you that the intent of Ayato and Shinji are completely different.
Yeah.
Their situations are different.
I find that strange.
I don't know why they keep comparing
when
the
people draw comparisons between the two protagonists, because I'd never thought they were similar.
No. Because Ayato came from a very stable background. Like, he had a mother who loved him. He was going to school. He had friends. He had a social life. He had a hobby that he wanted to pursue after. And he was just forced into the Rosaphon later, whereas Shinji was the antithesis of Ayato in that situation. He had no family that essentially loved him. He was being looked after, a guardian or sensei, as he used to call him. His dad abandoned him. His mother was quote unquote dead. Everything he came from was in a volatile environment. So, of course, Ayato takes action more than Shinji, because Ayato has, I think he has more to live for, in a sense, or he had more to fight for. Because Ayato was fighting for the people that he loved, whereas Shinji felt like he was fighting for the stuff that he wanted, so like his affection towards other relationships and such. Whereas Ayato felt like he needed to protect those he loved. Yeah, the two are entirely different. The intent of Rosaphon is different. It's an anime that's filled to the brim with passion, thoughtfulness, meaning, joy that emanates from start to end. And while people will consider this just as an Evangelion clone and nothing else, it does, in a sense, give me a peace of mind, understanding that there are those who admire the series for what it is, and those who will defend the show, and those who have the same passion and attachment as much as I do. Is there any more to add? Because I could go on for days how much Rosaphon is great, but...
I don't think so. I think we could easily do a full podcast.
Just each of them.
On Rosaphon at some point. Or even like, we could do a podcast on Rosaphon.
In general.
And Evangelion, and why they shouldn't be compared so often.
Like, there isn't really much to compare off of other than a few surface details.
The reason why I always will bring up Ava when I talk about how much I like Rosaphon is just because of how it's always been in the fan base between the two.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you talk about how much you love Rosaphon, like, in anything, you are going to get someone piping up about Ava at some point. So I just want to get that out of the way.
I guess another way to sum up Rosaphon better is to say Rosaphon is a coming-of-age story. Rather, Evangelion is more of an in-depth psyche into the mental condition of the characters. That's not to say some of the stuff that happens in Rosaphon is not going to hit you hard, like it does.
I would honestly say harder, to be honest. I think that scene hit me a lot harder than anything that happened in Ava.
Oh, man, like when I saw that scene, like I was an emotional wreck. Like it took me, I was sitting in my chair for like 10 minutes straight just trying to register what happened, essentially. And I guess the scream that followed after Ayato found out, that just made up the scene entirely. And yeah, like Razafon is also like very emotional hitting. I think I've already said that numerous times already in different contexts, but
that's one of the earlier things I brought up when I had it on my.
But please watch Razafon. If you're
seriously,
like, don't just denounce it as something that's just an Eva clone and just say negative things about it just because it is.
If you are an existing Eva fan, I would highly, highly recommend checking out Razafon with an open mind.
Please.
Without any sort of like preconceptions of this as a rip-off. Or even if you just want a good show that deals with themes that aren't always dealt with. A good show that might surprise you and might hit you in emotional areas that you weren't expecting it to.
Is there anything else to add about Razafon? Other than going into extreme details about why it's good?
I don't think so. I think that's Razafon about covered.
Alright.
So, we shall move in to the last show we're talking about. My number one, a show that I pronounce differently to everyone else, is Eureka 7. And I will always call it that, just because that's how I've pronounced it since I first watched the show. I just wanted to get it out of the way, because I feel like some people touchy about how things are pronounced, but anyway, Eureka 7 is my favourite anime of all time. Yeah, it's a show that came to me at the perfect time. It was when I was sort of I was into anime quite a lot, but I hadn't seen huge amounts of stuff, and it just came into my life when I was relatively young, and I just watched it, and it just got me. Like it just impacted me in a way that I had never been impacted by fiction before, up until this point. It's and it's not just a nostalgia thing, because I think I've rewatched this show a good 6 or 7 times now, and I still adore it every time. I'm sure a lot of it is sort of running off of those emotions I had when I watched it when I was young, but I just adore everything about it. Like, Eureka 7 has one of the most interesting and out there worlds, with how it sort of presents the science of Trapper and of reffing and of just how the worlds connect and everything like that, and how it delves into the stuff later in the series with how it relates to. I didn't want to say that actually, because that is a mild spoiler in some regards, but yes, I'm sorry for teasing my talking about something, but you know what I was about to talk about if you have seen the show. But this is a coming of age story that I has always appealed to me much more than anything else. I mean, Renton as a protagonist, he's not the most likable dude in the world, but his heart's in the right place. Like, I've always just adored seeing like his journey, and it's a mecha series, it's a sci-fi series, but above anything else, Eureka 7 is this massive, massive adventure, and it's about traveling all over this world, finding out all these different things. And one of just the biggest things that hits me is how it just sort of drops you into these other people's lives and sort of just gives you a little glimpse of how certain people are living and what they're doing and how they're coping with what's happening. And
shout out to a certain couple that Renton.
Yeah, Charles Beams, man.
Yeah, Charles and Ray.
and William B. Baxter. Just that part of the series when he goes on that journey, it's incredible. But just from the get go, because like Renton's living at home, he's bored, he's got nothing to do. He's got his one sort of source of entertainment is reffing. The military take the place that he goes and enjoys himself from him. He's not popular or anything. He looks up to his idol Holland, and wants to be a pro ref boarder one day. And then just one day, Eureka just plops in, crash lands in his house, and he goes off on the adventure of a lifetime, like with his idol, and his idol who ends up being not quite who he thought he was.
It's kind of like a Cowboy Bebop situation, isn't it?
Yeah, in some regards.
We don't have money.
Yeah. Just everything about this show just hits me, and it just I just feel things towards it that I've never felt towards another show before. Like, I couldn't tell you that Eureka 7 is straight up better than some of my other favourite shows, but it is my favourite show. I will, and I find it highly unlikely I will ever get the same response from anything that I've gotten from this, just because everything about it just works for me. I get just so much emotion comes to me from just so many of the things in this series, and it's got probably my favorite of the sort of chasing romance side of romance. Like there is a lot of other a lot more satisfying for me in my current age, in my current sort of like with what's relatable in terms of other shows like Nana or whatever, where the romance in that is a hell of a lot more relatable because it's actually about relationships and dealing with that kind of thing.
Something like Lohina.
When I watched this show, it was before I'd had any of that. It was before I understood any of that, and this sort of like utopian sort of chasing this like really fairy tale-esque love and the trials and tribulations that follow it. It's such an adorable story. It's such an adorable little romance to go along with this great adventure, and this and the interesting actual sort of political backing that defines why they're going on this adventure, why they're doing everything, why they are this kind of vigilante quote unquote terrorist group going against the government. But it's a classic, brilliant shonen mecha fun and games adventure that just ticks every box. Did you want to pipe in, Sooin?
Did you actually watch Eureka 7 like 6 or 7 times?
Yeah.
Wow.
I watch it a lot. Like since I'm not sure if I watch it like once a year or something. I just watch it whenever I'm in that kind of slump. You know when you get that slump where like I can't be bothered with anime right now. I put on Eureka 7 and I'm just like, oh.
Like, oh, these are the days.
Yep, this is it. This is it. Like most recent time I watched it was when I was building my what was it? It was my master grade Sazabi version car, and I was like, yeah, I want to check out the dub of Eureka 7 for the first time, and I popped the dub on, just to have in the background whilst I was building Gunpla, and yeah, really like the dub. Like obviously it's weird when you've watched the show that many times and you're so familiar with these voices, and the original audio is bloody good as well, but it was a nice change. I definitely got a lot out of it. What do you think of the show, Sooin?
I like the show, but again, I watched it in a much later, or rather, I started it a long time ago, but then I finished it recently. I think under a year ago, and I didn't get nearly the same amount of enjoyment as you have, because you watched it when you're in the right time.
Yeah. I think if I watched it for the first time today, I would definitely not hold it in the same regards I do, which is why like there are some people who have gone and watched this show because they know how much I loved it, not got anywhere near as much out of it as I have, and gone like, that's a bit weird. Like the other shows that this guy loves, I've gotten a hell of a lot from. But
like what I've learned from Eureka 7 is that some of the best romances are not romance oriented, or it's not the core focus. So yeah. Like for example, Macross has a great romance. Razafon has a great romance.
It's a good thing, like with us having Eureka 7 and Razafon as our number ones. Bones Mecha, man.
Yeah, Bones
Mecha with a side of romance. They know what they do.
They just need to get Yoji and Okito.
I want to make some more Captain Earth.
No, he needs to make more Razafon.
It's true.
Because he wrote Razafon. Guess what? Chiaki Kunaka also wrote part of Razafon.
Whoa.
It's not one of the most depressing parts either. It's actually one of the most uplifting. Yes, Eureka 7. As I said earlier, I think I finished it when I put it on hold for like 5 years ago. Like
That's a while.
No, I first watched Eureka 7 on a little cartoon block in Canada called Bionics. It's kind of like the the Canadian version of Toonami, where we just had like an anime block for 1 or 2 hours. Eureka 7 was one of them, and it's funny because I watched it when I was around, I think 16 or 15 first time, and I never really got much out of it, maybe because it was in the earlier episodes. But what struck me was how great of a chemistry Eureka and Renton had. Because even though those two are exactly the opposite, there's something between the two that just clicks. Like, one of the parts that I really enjoyed was when Eureka was attempting to punish the adopted kids. Yeah. And she did wrong, so she also joined, like, in the same room where Renton was being held for timeout or something, I think it was. So Eureka was attempting to be human, or attempting to learn the emotions that humans have. And that part struck me, but I guess it wasn't enough for me to finish the series until very recently when I did, and the latter half is just great.
Yeah, it is.
But there are some blemishes.
Dialing back, actually, for you
Okay.
bringing up chemistry,
Okay.
is something I actually forgot to mention. It's just one of the biggest things that's always drawn me into the show is the chemistry between Gecko State as kind of a group, as kind of a family. Is I just love how they interact with each other. Like how if you when you're in there, you're watching the show, you feel like you're one of them. You feel like you're part of this family. You can tell, like they have their disagreements, they have their fallings out, they have things that they don't have in common with each other, they have their problems, but you can just tell like how much this group have been through and how well knitted they are, and with how well developed each of them are as characters individually, it just sells that theme all the more. But anyway, continue what you were saying.
What was I going to say?
You were about to mention blemishes.
Oh yeah, there is certainly a lot more blemishes in the initial half. For example, being pranked and wearing that stupid fake mustache.
Hey man, he puts his fingers in his nose.
God.
And says, "Oni-chan, how'd you get so big?" And then he gets ramen dumped on his head. It's genius. It's golden.
It's just moments like those where I'm just going, do I really need to see this? I think what we forget to give credit about with Bones especially is when they animate facial movements whenever some intense emotion happens to them. Like
and a lot of that is actually how they sort of applied that with the character designs, because the character designs are very sort of they're very alive. There's a lot there to work with in terms of adding like expression and emotion.
It's like they understand how to animate certain facial movements, like some select ones, without being too realistic to the point where you can feel the emotions that they're feeling, but at the same time, they don't feel too realistic to the point where they look completely distorted and they just forget what they look initially.
Yeah, I've said a lot of what I want to say about the story and the characters and everything, but another thing that really did sell the world of Eureka 7 and really got me into it was just how bright, vivid and beautiful the design of the world itself, of the sort of the unique things of the world, like how the trapper itself looks, how they designed the not nightmare frames, LFOs. What am I on about? No.
So does Renton
they do have
pilot
wheels
the
on their
Lancelot?
feet. Yeah, totes. Yeah, how the designs of the LFOs. This is a mecha podcast. Just how interesting though. They're bloody surfing, man. They're blooming surfboarding mechs in the sky. Like, how could that not be amazing? But just the way they sort of applied colour, applied detail, and sort of the curvature of like the Nirvash in comparison to like the more blocky aspects of the
adults.
I forget what they're called. Yeah, of the terminuses and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all of it just sort of comes in and just sort of really, really gets you into it. Just because of how unique and everything looks, and it really does feel out of this world. And then, like when you dial it back, and there are the sections of the show where they're in these more poverty-stricken areas, where they're dealing with, what are they called? Vodorak. The Vodorak. Yeah, when they're dealing with the Vodorak and they go through their areas, and you see their settlements and stuff like that by comparison to some of the other areas, it really is an incredible feat, I would say, in terms of just world design and that kind of stuff, and just how beautifully it's animated. Like, this is 2006.
This is,
I think,
the prime of Bones.
Yeah. Which I think is actually when I originally watched it. I'm pretty sure I watched it later in the year. I wasn't watching when it was airing. I watched it shortly after it aired, I believe. Thanks to a friend of mine who was really bigging it up at the time. Yeah, other good things to say about it, like I love the music in this show. It's so upbeat and groovy, and it's got so much to it that again really does reflect how the show itself feels. Like all the openings, like Days by Flo, all of that, Sakura by Nagillis, I love it all. No, that's not this show. I'm the only one who's allowed to fuck up and say that LFOs are nightmare frames. You're not getting the openings confused.
I think what people just forget about in general is just how great Bones was in their prime.
Yeah. They're still good today, to be honest. They're just they're less consistent. They're not like knocking it out of the park every season. and they're not. I feel like the shows that they're making now that are good aren't ones that are going to be looked back on by people as much as this. But there's still a lot of solid stuff coming from Bones.
What are they doing recently? They did Captain Earth. They did Star Driver.
They did Captain Earth. They did Kekai Sensen last season,
right.
which I didn't watch.
They also
they've got a I think it's like
Chaika.
a reverse Harami show coming out this season.
All right.
Chaika, which is all right.
It's the
that show looks the upcoming one looks really good.
Yes.
But anyway, those aren't robot shows.
Yes.
I don't care about that.
Fuck non-bone shows.
I'm worried because I feel like I've run out of things to say about.
Now you know how I feel when I talk about Rosafon.
Yeah. Sorry, I promise everyone. No, I don't promise everyone. I would like to review this show one day. Whenever I promise I'm going to do anything, it never happens. That's happened
so
every
don't
time
promise.
I said I was going to do something in a video. I'm not going to promise I do it. I would love.
I want to review Rosafon someday, but I'm not going to promise on anything.
It will be a gush of raw emotion and happiness. I mean, I get to watch it again. Yeah. But that's our each of our top fives, along with a couple of honourable mentions.
Yeah, some
apologies if we
ones.
got a bit rambly and warbly at various points from
us
talking for 2 hours and getting dry mouths, and so that's the first episode of Mobile Pod.
I almost forgot the name.
Yeah, so did I. I was like, shit.
We didn't even make the logo or anything. That's the thing.
No, we literally.
We just came up with the
me and
name.
Sooin were talking on Skype today.
Alan just came
Like,
up with the name on the spot. He's like,
yeah,
Mobile Pod.
I
Like,
came up with the name earlier, and I was like, we had a couple of other names we were floating around. I was like, how about this one? It's like, okay, that's better than the other one. When do you want to record? And I was like, now. It's like, okay.
It's like, are you joking?
Like, we hadn't like set up a Google Drive. We hadn't made any graphics. We hadn't figured out what our plans were. We just did it. We just winged it, and I hope it's all right. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you look forward to hearing it again in the future. And if you don't,
then fuck you.
We're probably still going to make them anyway because this is quite fun. It's nice to do this. Talk about robots and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next episode is going to be something a lot less broad than this, I assume. We're going to dial it back. There's going to be a lot of things. We talk about specific people, specific art, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So whereas we talked about the general aspects of stories and stuff, this is a mech podcast. So we are going to talk a lot about the aspects of the robots in specific series. That might not be your thing because apparently not a lot of people like mech, which is a shame because arguably it's one of the best genres out there the medium can offer.
Mm-hmm.
So if this podcast manages to convince some people to watch mech shows, then by all means we are succeeding.
Yep. If like anyone out there chooses one of the shows that we either of us mentioned today, watched it and enjoyed it and got into the genre on the back of it, then we've done our job. And if you watch one of the shows we mentioned and end up hating it, then I'm sorry. Or if you decide to spite me and watch Victory Gundam and absolutely love it, then
be right back and watch Victory. Right.
Stand up to the victory. But anyway, I has been BakaShift. This is my channel and stuff. You can subscribe to me here.
Yeah.
And you can follow me on Twitter at BakaShift, and I'm joined by my wonderful, lovely co-host, Miss Sooin. You can't subscribe to her here because this isn't her channel. Where are you at, Sooin?
You can follow me on Twitter, or I'm sure Alain will put my channel link
everything
into the
will be in the description.
Yes.
If you want to get some more of this girl.
And you can also follow. Should I just spew out like all of my social media stuff?
Yeah, go for it.
All
man.
right.
Do all your art stuff because there's going to be a lot of stuff we're talking about in the future that's going to be like relevant to like mechanical design and stuff. And Sooin is an incredibly talented artist, so you should check out everything she does.
Aww. But yes, my website is www.sooinchung.com. That's where I put all my portfolio stuff, and I might update it, though it's kind of outdated at this point. I also do an inconsistent blog there. I haven't updated that in over a month now. Sorry about that. To those who actually follow that. I also have an Instagram, but you don't have to follow me because I don't do anything there.
So why'd you mention it, bro?
I don't know.
God.
All of my social media sites are also connected to my website.
Bum, bum, bum.
It's like, you can also add me on Steam, you can also add me on Facebook as well. No, I'm just kidding. Fucking hell.
No, man.
No. But yeah, hope you had fun on this this entry episode, I guess you could call it, pilot episode.
Yeah, this is the pilot episode. A bumper pilot episode, because they're pretty much never going to be this long.
No.
Like, this, I didn't realize quite how long this was going to take to get through all of the
I thought
shows,
this was going to be an hour maximum.
Yeah, I didn't realize, 5 shows each doesn't take that long. Apparently it takes 2 hours and a bit, so... Yeah, we're looking to probably go for under an hour generally in the future, but I hope you enjoyed it. We've been faffing about in this wrap-up for quite too long, and we'll see you next time. Next time you'll see me will probably be in a different kind of video, but
hopefully.
Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.
And never watch Victory Gundam, because it's shit.
The best character in all of Gundam is Shakti being kidnapped. You know you love it, Alan, deep down, inside.